Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're here tonight. Appreciate y'all coming in. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for being here. And for whatever reason, I left my phone upstairs, so Mrs. Steve is not connected to me, nor are my mods. So I may run up there in just a second to get those. But anyway, tonight, if you're new to the channel, welcome. While you're in chat, be respectful of the mods, the families, and each other. I'm running the chat by myself tonight. Mrs. Steve is still in Florida and should be traveling back down there this week to go see her and see the other Steves, and looking forward to that. We got a lot of bad weather coming in next week, so I'll be back here in Georgia to make sure that everything, animals are taken care of, everything up here in Georgia. But anyway, tonight we're looking at some thoughts, and I've been thinking about the Kohberger case, especially about some of the motivation, some of the decisions made, and why would you choose certain weapons over other types of weapons that, and a lot of it has to do with motive and the type of individual and whatever their fantasy or whatever their drive is to commit certain crimes. It's not always that the victim has a relationship. You see homicides a lot of times, and that there is a long-term relationship. That doesn't appear to be the case in this that we are aware of. But anyway, before we get into it much further, let's go ahead and get the slideshow going. If you have any information about Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, or Zana, absolutely make sure that law enforcement is aware of that information. As we move forward with the trial, it absolutely is of utmost importance that they have that information and that we're able to cover it, and that law enforcement has it so that they'll have every avenue of to be able to follow up on all information to make sure that we have justice for the case. Of course, we have Kohberger, who has been charged with it, and there's a lot of opinions out there. It's a very strange case, and we're starting to see more and more of that as social media becomes involved, that you have opposing forces, which is absolutely is what we need for the court system. Everyone can have opinions, but eventually only the jurors get to make the ultimate decision, and he's innocent until proven guilty. And just because people have different opinions about his innocence or guilt, it slows the process down. It makes us have some type of supporting evidence for our opinions on both sides. And that's a great thing for our justice system. And we have to remember that. And as we look at this case and as we move forward, this is some of the things that I look at and that drives me to try to see. And because you have where these 4 innocent children are attending school, have no idea what awaits them on that in those early morning hours, and absolutely stunned the community, stunned the country, and why would that be? And that was one of the things that when I was trying to figure out what is the motive, what was his intent going there that night, and that's what I created this presentation about. But anyway, before we get started in that, let's go check in chat before I get too far behind and see if who all is here. Cunningham's here. Good to see you. Junior, Mitzi D or Die. Olivia too. Good to see you. Let me see if I can get this thing going without banning. The other night during member show, I just went over there and banned one of my members in a private member. So if you get kicked out by me, it's don't worry about it. We'll get you a gold star. Um, and because sometimes this Google machine just does weird things whenever I'm involved in it. And just like it did right then. Okay. All righty. Let me try to get this thing scrolling. There we go. Got it scrolling now. All right. Oh, me. Don't want to get too far behind in case any questions pop up. But if you do have any questions, just throw them in chat as the presentation goes forward. And we'll move forward. Let's see. Looks like we're doing pretty good right now. Just a few minutes behind. All right. Now on the presentation part of it. Of course, this is the residence. And you can see the crime scene tape there. Law enforcement's in the residence. And there were certain things that happened that night that the individual or the vehicle, as it passed by, made multiple drive-throughs, turns, and that law enforcement mentioned in the probable cause. And there's been so much content created on that of some of these loops and the time it took and what was going on during those periods, what types of decisions were being made, what drove him there for that ultimate decision to act that night. And there was something that occurred to me, some of the similarities between not only this case, and but the with let's see which case we got. I'm trying to get the Libby and Abby with the Delphi homicides. The similarities of that we have a knife attack on multiple victims, two of them, and not only that, but also there was a gun that was part of that case. And so I was thinking, and we was looking at some of the evidence that was secured in this case, and there was a gun that was collected also in this case. And I thought about what if he had that gun in his possession while he was within this residence? Is that something that he may have brought? We wouldn't know on the Delphi case that a gun was even there, except that there was a bullet left at that location. Whereas at this, with the Kohberger case, while there's not a bullet left, there was a sheath left. So we have the knife, plus you would have the injuries. And so we have to consider that. But the biggest thing that was driving me is what was the motive? Why did we have a certain weapon choice? And what is that weapon choice? Was it just one weapon that he chose to take? For the fact that law enforcement secured during the search warrant a Glock 22 40 caliber. And is that something that could have been in his possession or another similar type of firearm that they didn't recover? We just don't know. Law enforcement may or may not have knowledge if a firearm was brought along with them that night. Was it used to intimidate, keep them silent, or controlled while one of them was subdued? We just don't know. But of course, anytime you have homicides, the primary weapon, especially when you have multiple victims, is going to be a firearm versus a knife. But we see that in this case that we have multiple victims that did occur due to the injuries received from a weapon that is everyone is speculating due to the sheath is a K-bar. And with the injuries, and I'm sure that most, if not all of those injuries will be identifiable coming to a specific type of weapon that would be similar to a K-bar, because law enforcement hasn't went outside that avenue of descriptions yet. But the three things that really drove me is what was the motive, what is the weapon choice, and the decision to act. And there's some studies out there that as I went back and looked at some of my schooling and training and did some research online and looking at some of these studies, that there are certain things that would drive an individual to use a certain type of weapon of choice. But ultimately, all of them have to make a decision of when to commit the act and how they're going to commit it and what weapons they're going to use. It was, like I say, it's very interesting. But anyway, we have a timeline of when his phone went silent that morning at 2:47, went offline, didn't come back on to 4:48, and through that window of opportunity of when he's offline is when these uh, acts occurred, and being a vehicle similar to what he owned is seen in the area, and of course, law enforcement has made those connections and included in the probable cause affidavit for his arrest. And so we have to look at that. He is a person that has the ability, the opportunity, and has been charged with this. And so some of the items that was retrieved was, of course, the Smith & Wesson pocket knife, a cell phone, black gloves, black mask, laptop, and a 40 caliber Glock 22 pistol. And that's one of the things that if you're just simply going to a residence and for whatever your motive is that I'm going to commit a homicide. And it's far deeper than that. When you got an individual that has some type of fantasy or obsession with a victim, and this is the thing that is so striking, that regardless of what a victim believes, it has nothing to do with what the reality of the situation of what that offender relationship with you is. He could have that he's in some type of fantastic relationship and he's doing it from 100 yards away, and you never know this. And when he interacts with you, he may come up or just pass you by, but that's part of it. And what was that relationship? What drove him to target these individuals and this, which one of them, which of course we law enforcement with all the information, I believe has a clear understanding who exactly was targeted and what drove him that night to make that decision to act at that simple targeted position that he took at this time, and what made him pick that exact time. I went and there's some research out there about certain crimes being committed during certain windows of throughout the day from the early morning hours only. And there's one type of crime that keeps popping up through the weapon choice, through the time that it was committed, and within the bedroom also. All of it goes back to a SA type of motivation. And regardless if he's ever had any type of interaction with this victim before, that this would not be what the motive of it ultimately is. And I believe, my opinion is, that's exactly what it was. It was some type of SA motivated. There's a lot of reasons people have killed other people throughout history, from power to robberies, to just anger, revenge. But this isn't something that he's charged or has a basis that shows that he had any type of relationship with any of these victims. There's no long term for him to be that he's doing it for some type of revenge, that they had done something to him, or that some type of relationship breakup, emotional, doesn't fit the bill. That we really only have a couple of motives, and that's the power and the SA type of motivation, and what would drive him to commit this crime. And then, of course, we have that he had a knife, and there's records showing that he has purchased one through on the internet, and that's one of the things that with the studies shows that a lot of people will choose weapons such as a knife because there's no background checks, there's no serial numbers, there's none of that. Although in this case, we do have a DNA profile. Before I get too far behind, let me check in chat and see where we're at. Let's see here. Good to see you. Good to see you, Barbara Hall. Glad you're here. Ruckus is here. Yes, I'm glad everybody enjoying chat tonight. Hello, Matt. Hello, Peggy, Gail, Kelt. Just trying to check up and see if there's any questions or anything going on. Let's see here. Won't get too far behind. Uh-oh. True Crime Way, we were just talking about you at Coach Jeff's chat. I hope it was good. Oh, me. That's funny. All right. Let's see. Like I said, just trying to see if there's any questions or anything going on out there, guys. Just had to partner with Mrs. Steve when she's here with me. She takes care of all this, and it moves so much better. Man R says, Steve, I didn't get to say a special hi to you. My apologies. I can't hear for you, so I hope that that counts. Absolutely counts. And we're going to, Demead says a knife is more quiet, probably just my opinion. We're going to talk about that in just a moment with one of the slides. Bossy gifted 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you, Bossy. Appreciate it. There's your blue light. Absolutely appreciate that. Let's see here. Normally, Mrs. Steve saves those up and everything, but now that I'm here by myself, all right. Let's see here. Anyway, let's get back into why we would make such a choice, such as a knife. And then, of course, we have the Glock 22. And like I said, one of the things that struck me is that there were some similarities between the Delphi case and this case, as far as that the offender owns both platforms. He has knives and he has firearms, such as Richard Allen does. And Richard Allen, on that day, who he also has been charged with a crime, and of course, innocent until proven guilty. But we know that from the information in the probable cause affidavit that both of those were on at the scene due to the injuries that Libby and Abby suffered, plus a bullet that was unspent round that was found at the location. And so I got to thinking about with this was, could he have possibly taken a firearm along with him on this case? It's very possible. Law enforcement seized it for a reason. And they could have seized it to do other background checks if there's other types of crimes that they could link that weapon to through firing and the forensics on that weapon. But anyway, the Glock 22 is a semi-automatic pistol. It fires a 40 caliber. It holds 15 rounds in the magazines plus 1 in the pipe or in the chamber. But and it's it's one of the I carried one for many years in law enforcement. I have several of them. They're a great gun, and law enforcement throughout the country carries it. And a lot of individuals choose that weapon, just regular citizens, for the fact that they go with what the law enforcement has already proof tested and reliability, because law enforcement is not going to carry something that is unreliable. And so a lot of people follow that guideline and don't blame them. But anyway, so this is some of the reasons that some of the criminals may choose a knife, that the guns are loud, and that if he had to use that gun during any time during that crime, that he run the risk of waking up people in the household and also neighbors. And remember, he's in a dead end street. He has selected a residence, that this offender has selected a place that if he wakes up people and there's a big altercation and there's a lot of witnesses that come to the residence due to screams or due to the fight or due to gunfire, and brings people's focus and attention to the streets. It is a high likelihood that he would be identified. And so we don't, the offenders do not like to send out a message that here I am, I'm shooting up a house, I'm committing homicides, um, gunfire, domestic, because gunfire does bring a lot of attention towards a very, because everybody, when you start hearing gunfire, people want to see where it's coming from, especially in this day and age of something that you might not anticipate. And it's not like we're talking about 4th of July or New Year's. We're talking about a very specific date in the middle of November of when there wouldn't be fireworks. And so any type of loud gunfire would have brought the attention of a lot of witnesses to that residence or to the area. And that's not something a criminal wishes to have. They do not want witnesses. And so that's one reason guns are not the main choice in certain types of crimes, because the knives are quiet. They don't have the serial numbers. But in this case, this knife had something that was far superior than a serial number. It had a DNA profile on it, on the sheath, and which has come back to haunt a person that has ordered and has in his history the purchases of a K-bar knife. And of course, like with knives, they're fixed blades, edged weapon. There's no need to have to reload. They won't fail to fire, and they are easily controlled in high stress situations. There's nothing about a knife that, unless the blade is broken, that knife will continue to inflict injuries and create all different types of lacerations. Even if the blade is partially broken, it can still create tremendous injuries to a victim. And so in close quarter battle, in close quarter encounters, this type of instrument would be something that I could see where a certain type of individual with a certain need and certain fantasy would choose that weapon. And that feeds into that when you analyze some of these types of crimes, there's studies out there, there's professionals out there that will tell you that a knife can be a substitute for certain types of SA attacks, and that even without any evidence of a crime scene, a knife wound analysis can reveal a sexual motivation in some cases of homicide. And we don't know all the injuries and types of injuries and locations of injuries that occurred, but law enforcement would look at that on these victims and see what types of injuries, and is it something that reveals, because the timeline does, that in those early morning hours between 12 and 3 o'clock in the morning, I think there's some studies out there that says that if a crime is committed at that time, that it is a higher percentage, it's due to some type of SA involvement. And so with that part being there, and then of course, when they do the analysis on the type of injuries, will that feed into the same possibilities? That's something that they will look at. But Eric Burgard wrote a study, and he says cases of SA homicide, you have offenders that will present a sadistic approach to their killings. For them, it's not just a matter of causing death, it's the process that's important. And that's what I'm telling you. These people that have these fantasies and they act out this power and they go in and commit this crime. And although a knife is a poor selection against multiple offenders or victims, or if you're using it in self-defense, of course, it's multiple offenders, but using it as a offender yourself against innocent victims, it's, if you got multiples, it's not the first selection of what you would think an offender would do, unless it has some type of sadistic drive to feed some type of sick fantasy that this individual has. And it's that process that's important to certain offenders. And is that what's going on here? Just like I said, it's something fascinating. But there was another study back in 85, and where they talk about these offenders having to make decisions. And this is extremely important to understand and realize, look at, and think about, not only on this case, but on any homicide. This here is something I would uh, tell you to, that regardless of what you look at on any case, always consider this, that in real life, the two decision points may occur simultaneously. The decision process also does not necessarily have to involve careful planning and premeditation prior to the criminal event. They posit that immediate situational factors inform the decision-making process and can alter the sequence of events, resulting in decisions being made last minute with only rudimentary or no planning, and offenders basing their decision on an assessment of incentives within the immediate situation. And is that why he drove by so many times? Was that he was going by and doing assessments and looking at and having to make that final one decision. It's not like he just left his house, drove, parked behind the residence, went in, committed these crimes. We have where he drove past numerous times. What made him do that? What was going on? What was those final steps that he had to make? What was the prep? And that final decision, you know, of course, the vehicles that were in the front yard, they were there every time he went past. Was he trying to see if anyone was going to leave? And at that time frame, in those hours, most people just don't wake up in the middle of the night and leave. And so that's something that, but whatever drove him, and he had to make that decision and make that assessment. He had the weapons of choice that he wanted to use, and it's just a very interesting thought process that we have to look at. All right, let me get caught back up with chat here. All right. And Junior Johnson, I wonder if he bought the K-bar knife specifically for this crime. And that's a very interesting and a great question. Um, and I would think that more than likely that if he is the one responsible for this case, and looking at, and I would love to see what all the answers and interactions that he had with other criminals of, and what type of research did he look at and talk about with his studies from the other college when he sent out that survey. What was those uh, responses that might have played a part in his determining of when to strike, how to strike, what to consider, and of course, law enforcement will have that information. But would he have purchased that knife specifically? I would think so. Miranda, I tend to agree with you. I believe that his goose is cooked. Um, Anna says, I guess the offender did it because he could, and he thought he could get away with it. Maybe still does. PhD level crime, perhaps. And that's true. I mean, we're dealing with someone that, regardless of any other thing, this is a crime that was committed by someone that was organized. He was able to drive, find a location, pick victims, enter into a residence undiscovered, commit a crime, brought the weapon, was able to get away from the residence under the cloak of darkness, and then elude law enforcement for a couple of months, which is absolutely something that, you know, is all indicators being organized. Although, sometimes the luck of the draw with unorganized homicides that certain evidence just doesn't support. But you can see in those crimes how disorganized they are. But we don't have any information about being disorganized in this case. And this is, like I said, knifing is just brazen and intimate. And that's a lot of studies mention that and talk about how that the thrust of a knife can be something of the SA type of indicators and possible motive for that. And it's, is it? We just don't know. Gil Hurd gifted one True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Appreciate that. And of course, somewhere this week on live, one of the hosts said lots of evidence against him, more than people know. He said it with good authority. Absolutely, I believe they have a lot of evidence, and I believe that, and we know they have a lot of evidence because how many terabytes was sent to the defense and discovery, and so you know you um, the terabytes aren't just blank pages. The terabytes of discovery are going to be everything from um, photographs to videos to scanning to DNA evidence, just everything that's imaginable, cell tower, and other information that, even what the father of one of the victims mentioned the other day, that we are going to become aware of other ways that we are tracked from this case. And so I'm looking forward to that, try to understand a little bit more about how um, we're able to be seen and tracked continuously 24/7. Let's see, just trying to get called up again, guys. Peggy's in trouble. Her heater just died and it's 10 degrees. Goodness. And this is Matt has a good point here. Personally, I think he went there for Kaylee, and he was hoping she was in her room, like stated. I feel he wanted to essay, and don't think he had intention, but that's how it turned out to be. And he may be absolutely 100% dead on, because could it have been that he is the offender is that type of person that would go in, commit some type of essay, and then leave. And did it just escalate to the point of 4 victims? Absolutely possible. Mrs. Steve and I have discussed that very point. Nightbot misbehaving tonight. Oh, me. Um, Mr. Steve, do you think the social media attributed to this crime and the aspect he created a distorted relationship to the victims? No, there's nothing, you know, no matter what any individual puts out there on social media, they do not deserve what happens to them. And, you know, our lives, we open up windows, we open up doors. The more presence you have on social media, the more people are aware of you. Um, but it still doesn't give anyone um, uh, the right to come through that door, through that window of opportunity to commit such a to victimize you. And but uh, did it make them, because there are certain risk factors that you have when you have certain jobs and you do certain things. But social media is something that we all have, our kids have, our parents have, we have, and it's something that's part of society. And it opens up so much goodness for people. My mother was disabled, but her whole life, from the point that she couldn't travel or go anywhere, was through social media and being able to watch and see and interact and talk to people, and it's just part of our social structure. And so, did it open up a window where someone could see them? Yes, but that's the only thing. But I don't think it played any other part other than that. Made someone aware of some sick individual, and we all have to be aware and be of this situational awareness that we all can be victimized, and these people, these types of individuals with these fantasies that we may be totally unaware of how they view us. We don't have knowledge of what that relationship and how we may insult them, or what part of a fantasy that we're feeding into their fake reality. And so we have to be extremely careful and live with it. But I don't think it attributed. I think there were some searches done, and uh, there was some mentioning of, and I thought it was improbable cause. If I misspoke, then no. But I thought that there was some online purchases from Amazon or otherwise that was mentioning about the purchase of a K bar. Thank you, Sirius Black. It was an honor to serve. I had I hope, a pretty good career that had a positive impact. And I'm hoping that my channel, as we move forward and as we continue to work with cold cases, that we continue having an impact. True crime web. Do you think that the weapon of choice is because it's up close and personal? Do you think there's some kind of pleasure gained from that than just pulling? Absolutely. I think it played a lot about the sound, and being that he's picked the victims who live in a central location, surrounded and on a one end dead end street, and he chose that, and his drive and his um, uh, was it part of the challenge, and uh, to get his adrenaline up, that fed his fantasy that this is the ultimate crime, and then choosing a knife. Absolutely, I do think it played a part in it. I really do. Peggy, how long does it believe he was in the house? Less than 20 minutes. I think it's just in the teens. And from the time that when they believe he parked the vehicle. And from some of the information from one of the victim's fathers, that they probably have a pretty good timeline of exactly when that vehicle was parked and where it was parked and what the time started and when it was left seen, because we have those cameras. And there's and I'm sure they can tell you, due to this timestamp on one camera, the one that's right next to the house, of when it went past and then when it came back and left the area for that final time that is noted in the probable cause affidavit. So it's absolutely amazing. I think you can whittle it down to almost like 12, 13 minutes that four victims lost their lives. Rougarou. That's a great name. I hadn't. Good to see you. Sandy says, I agree with you. I think that's more than likely what went on. Yes, there's in the one of the attorneys mentioned that um, some of the items retrieved by investigators included a Smith and Wesson pocket knife and a Glock 22 pistol. So yes, um, I think it was on the search warrant in Pennsylvania. Matt, if you got accidentally got hit, no big deal. I'll take care of. But appreciate you being here. Something that happens occasionally that um, as our mods go through and certain things get clicked. Mm, Gosh, the posh of $5. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Let's see here. And Miranda Lee, 499. Congrats on making it to 12,000, Mr. C. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am so, I've never expected to ever get to this level. And I owe it all to my community and a great group of mods and a great community. It said that 4 a.m. is curfew time for. Do you think that that time was chosen in the hopes that Mills had left? I believe so, um, and he would have knowledge of some of that. I know it's frats versus flats. I hadn't heard that he had searched about the Delphi murders a lot. That is interesting. Um, Steve, any possibility the K-bar sheath is intentional and meant to mislead investigators, and what chances would that be? It could be that was originally, if it's by a different type of knife, but law enforcement would be able to go in, and the medical examiner would uh, tell a lot from the wound channels, certain injuries. They'll be able to tell the width, the length, and certain characteristics about that knife. And then also you would have different types of transfers that any type of body fluids that get on certain areas of that knife when it is used again, and if it makes a complete um, full blade wound channel, you can have transfers that will show you the outline of the hilt and things. And is that something that law enforcement looks for? Absolutely. And but they would be able to tell through the wound injuries and characteristics. Is it something that could be uh, similar to a K-bar? Matt, what happened? Well, I'm going to try to be careful and not kick you out there. But every now and then, Matt, sometimes, like I said, people I have mods, and I've done it myself. That just occasionally, as I try to highlight or look at someone's comment, you bad things happen sometime. It's nothing intentional, and glad you're still with us. Appreciate you being here. You get a gold star. I think when my mods get you, accidentally, it's a silver star. When I get you, it's a gold star. I have to make it. Whereas if you get banned by me, it's a higher degree. See, Matt, everybody is glad that you're back. Well, we know they had a Smith and Wesson pocket knife, and I don't know how many other knives were obtained, but uh, and regardless of, um, and that's the argument that people can say, well, there's no evidence he ever purchased a K-bar knife. Okay, he shoplifted it, or he touched, or he handled a friend's K-bar, because if we are to believe law enforcement, he handled that sheath at some point. His DNA is on the sheath of a K-bar. So regardless of how he got it, which the simplest explanation of how he would obtain a K-bar knife and sheath is he purchased it. Is that the case? Maybe not, but still, at some point, he handled that sheath, and that sheath was found under a victim. So you can look at all the other points and argue, well, he never bought a K-bar. It, as if I was sitting on a jury, it would not matter to me that, oh, you can't prove that he ever bought the knife. That's not going to be part of the case. The part of the case is that at some point he handled that sheath that is a K-bar. And so let's not get lost in the um, some of the fine print of this. The purchase of it is not as important as the DNA on the sheath. And so we can get lost and sidetracked by some of the details. And if there's no purchase records of it, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Mm. He used a 1095 Crovan steel K-bar because it's hard to break them, but the flaw of that blade is it's impossible to hold its edge for long. They dull quickly. That's why butchers won't use it. Interesting. Thank you. I know more about a 1095 Crovan steel. And that's the thing is I know that there's certain steels and certain knives I've owned myself that would hold the edge forever. And then you had some knives that they they won't hold. You can cut air and they'll get dull. Hello, Jill. Good to see you. I'm gonna try not to block you tonight, Jill. I messed up there tonight. I think it was Jill I throwed off the other night for no reason. Oh, back with her. Rougarou, great question. How did he leave? No blood in car. He had to have blood all over him. I would expect so. I was surprised that they haven't. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't find blood. There's no DNA. Um, and uh, as if you've watched my channel long enough, you'll know that pretty much everything I own is either contaminated with my blood profiles, my DNA profiles, or synthetic blood, because I do a lot of testing. And if anyone ever luminols anything that's ever belonged to me, including including my clothing, I'm going to light up like a Christmas tree. And my vehicles, the cross contaminations, my boots, my shoes, poor Mrs. Steve, her washing machine. So I was surprised also, but they said that they watched him clean his car, and there are certain things uh, uh, that he could have done with layering and protections, that and undressing, redressing, cleaning, washing, that could have uh, you know, taken out any and all traces of any type of evidence. But I was shocked too. I figured that car would be would be the deciding factor. Bossy, I agree. However, I didn't mean it gave him right, but that he had a false reality and therefore just, yes, I understand that, Bossy. Yes. No, he didn't have the right. And I agree with you. And I understood that. I was just saying that it's all part of and we all have to understand and live with the realization that we have to be totally aware of our situation at all time. There's been YouTubers out there that have been targeted and victimized by crazed individuals, and not only YouTubers, but these people. And as Anna just, as I scanned past one of her comments there, that beautiful people do attract a lot of attention. And all these children, these three girls, they were absolutely beautiful girls. You had a young man that was a very handsome, rugged, uh, uh, handsome individual that uh, shouldn't have, he would have been the focus of that. If he had a YouTube channel, I'm sure that other people and women would have enjoyed watching and interacting with him, just like these girls. But it doesn't give anyone the right to focus upon them and commit such crimes. But I understood what you was talking about, boss. It's not a big deal. It may have been Gail I got the other night. I can't remember if it was Gail or Jill. Steve, how was there no blood in the car? I have, like I said, there could have been, and he cleaned it and destroyed it, and or he took certain actions to ensure that he was able to go somewheres and remove layers and of clothing. Along with, did he use any type of um, barriers within the vehicle, seat covers, pedal covers, floor mats, and did he strip the vehicle and take everything? I mean, there's so many possibilities. I just don't know. But I was shocked. I'm still shocked that there was no forensics from the vehicle. Why do you think this BK would gamble and go inside a house full of people and take a chance of others waking up when he was focused on a certain person? And that could be part of the challenge. That could be part of his fantasy. And just like with choosing a weapon, these individuals, people do crazy things. There's certain obsessions, and it's like you see children that they get something on their mind. They want a cookie. They're going to go to the cookie jar, and even when you catch them with their hand in the cookie jar, they weren't getting a cookie, and they know you're there. They know you're watching them, but they're going to get a cookie, and it's not on the same, it's not the same comparison, but these individuals can have these obsessions that nothing is going to stand in the way, and whatever triggers them, and whatever that trigger is, they'll go to any measure to fulfill that fantasy. And is this what happened that night? For the fact that those decisions, he went past that residence multiple times. He looped the area, he circled the area uh, uh, over, I think it was like an 8-minute loop. and continued. And he did it multiple times, and he was trying to decide. And at some point, he made that decision. And this is, yeah, it's very, yeah, it's just 10, 12, 13 minutes, and um, it's, it is hotly debated, but it is a narrow, and like I said, law enforcement would have the exact time of when that car went past going into that dead end area, parking area, and when it came back out. So they have a extremely uh, accurate timeline. Thank you, Barbara, for everything you and your family do. And if any of you don't know Barbara, um, um, she is the mother of Timmy D's. Check out that Timmy D's case and absolutely spread the word. Bring attention to that case, and it needs as much coverage and as awareness as you can. Um, Barbara is a absolutely um, uh, a fighter for justice for Timmy, and I respect her so much for everything that she's done and continues to do as she brings awareness to his case. And so, absolutely, if y'all have a chance, look up Timmy D's, look up Barbara, and have them in your thoughts. Thank you on the congrats on the 12,000th. There was the witness, and then of course we have where food was ordered, and then of the law enforcement. And some of the tracking information that was let out by the father of one of the victims is that they're going to be able to tell, and if that evidence is correct, they're going to show whenever the if Kohberger is the one and that's his vehicle, and they have that information and that data through whatever type of cellular or technology that puts him there, that's going to narrow that window even more. Black Widow, you're nobody till you're accidentally timed out. And I'm liable to time anybody out. Mm. Oh, me. Serious Black. True Crime Web, does it surprise you by all the pro Kohberger people out there? I'm new to the YouTube true crime, and I am astonished at the amount of people who are disregarding evidence. Um, you know, no, but I do appreciate them for the fact that makes, regardless, they have to, that if they're pro Kohberger, what are their supporting evidence of why and it's impossible for him to commit the crime? Whereas we have the probable cause affidavit and law enforcement saying these are the reasons that we believe he did. And it's through these two, if we didn't have the opposing people that says that it wasn't Kohberger, we would never be able to draw a jury of peers with an open mind that has to be convinced that he's guilty. For the fact that we have to draw from some well that believes or has no knowledge, not that they believe he's innocent, but it has to be from a well of people that have no knowledge of the case. And so for every person that believes he's guilty to every person that doesn't, there's a person out there that knows absolutely nothing about this case. And it's from that well that we're going to have to draw these juries from. And there's nothing says that you can't have any knowledge of the case. It's just that you can't have an opinion. of is he innocent or guilty? Excuse me. Yeah, Sensei says maybe he believe he could pull it off, get away with it. Power, which to agree he or whatever, and power is one of the reasons of why some people do commit homicides. I think it's a little bit deeper than just power on this one, but it, even in those, it's something. Do you think BK saw DoorDash? I would be surprised if he didn't run across him. For the fact during some of those loops, I'm sure he met other vehicles, and um, I don't know if that DoorDash had any type of camera that might have picked him up. Also, hello, Betsy. True crime wave. Do you think BK bought the chemicals to detect blood in his vehicle to aid in his cleanup? Um, no, I don't know. Uh, I would be surprised if he did. And I believe that would have been part that if they found any receipts of those types of purchases or any residue of those chemicals, and if they do, that will be something that will be brought into court. Olivia, two, $10. Thank you. Appreciate it, Olivia. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Like I said, without Mrs. Steve, I'm a little bit slower, guys, but I try to do my best. But thank y'all for being here. And yes, I believe he prepped his car. Um, um, and as some of my other videos you see in the processing of transfers of stepping in blood, and we know that there was a shoe pattern from inside the residence that law enforcement collected and included as a PCA and part of the probable cause affidavit. And they did that for a reason. And I would believe that if he wore those shoes in the vehicle in an area of a floor mat or carpet that wasn't protected, that law enforcement would be able to gather that. And so I think certain measures were taken uh, to minimize that. I'm a sin. Oh, mercy, I'm late again. No, you're not late. Uh, Sirius says, I've been treated terribly for just asking a question in some chats. I like questions. I don't care. You know, even if, you know, you're on the top, absolute opposite viewpoint of mine. I appreciate those for the fact, like I said, it slows you down and it makes you have supporting evidence of your opinion. Like I would expect anyone to tell me that, no, you're wrong. I want to know why I'm wrong. What supports your opinion? And you know, and I hope we never lose that ability to be able to debate civilly and discuss things. I was raised in that type of environment, and I promote it as much as possible. And that's something else. I'm wondering if he possibly had two knives. It could be, and it's possible. And just like he may have had another weapon, such as a firearm. Who knows? Amber Burns. It's sired. Oh, it's just struck me funny. Uh, Micro, I agree with you. I think that he undressed and bagged everything up for getting in his car. I did a reenactment of that where Mrs. Steve and I went out and threw synthetic blood on each other and timed it to see how long it would take to take off layers. No, I can't. If we did luminol, I know what would happen. But luminol also has reactions with metals. Thanks for being a truth speaker, Mr. T. So many conspiracy theories out there. Yes, I not into conspiracies. Not too, I enjoy listening to them because even in lies and law enforcement, we see so many lies and we hear so many conspiracies, but some parts of those conspiracies can be based upon some type of truth, and because they have to be, because you can't have a conspiracy about a lie, you have to have some truth, and they have to be intermingled, and you just have to be able to select what parts are actually fact and what parts are uh, unbacked and there's no basis. Yes, Betsy, I'm sorry about your mother not feeling well. Remember, I gotta get busy back to lurking. That's funny. And get called up, guys. We appreciate everybody being here in chat. And this is a good, interesting point. And I find it hard to believe he staked that house out before knowing how many people lived there that he would go and do this alone. And we can see from the image early on, even here with the crime scene tape of multiple cars parked outside the residence, and they stayed there for several days. And that is a good point. And is that what made him stop and drive by and loop around and come back? And that he wasn't anticipating all those vehicles, or were they? And we know that one of vehicles was new to the area, and was that something that caused him to hesitate? Was he surprised by the number of vehicles there? And that could be something that absolutely is what made him loop around time and time again. Michael Kimmy, 999, thank you. This is a cautionary tale to all of us. Too many, including myself, will have our heads down in our phones. Our intuition and instincts are there for our survival. Put your phones away and look up. Absolutely, you have to have situational awareness. And I absolutely believe that women's intuition is far stronger than men. And every time Mrs. Steve ever has any ill feelings or intuition about an individual, I pay attention to that. And she's not wrong. I can't ever remember a time that me not listening and appreciating what she told me, um, I'm sure has kept us out of certain situation. Yeah, there was some type of device that connected to their Wi-Fi. Absolutely, that was mentioned in the probable cause affidavit. Get called up here, guys. I appreciate. Like I said, we got a lot of people in chat. Thank y'all. Yeah, there's Blue Star. There's several agents out there. Almost all of them have some degree or some type of luminol in them. Some of them are destructive to DNA, and you can't use them. Yeah, like I said, I think it's Blue Star is one of the companies, and there's probably several out there now. Can they determine the exact time of death by an autopsy? There's a lot of things that start happening with the human body at the time of death, and actually, time since death is what they're trying to determine. And there's a lot of um, you know, different mortises out there. Rigor mortis is one of them that you can use that comes into the muscles and leaves, and lividity. There's a lot of things that can be used to determine uh, even the cooling of the body at set rate. And there's a lot of things that they can do. The what was eaten and and what are the breakdown processes and how long has food been digested. I mean, there's so many different ways, but it's all just general. It won't give the exact second or minute, but it's things to be considered. Matt, $5 super sticker. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Matt gets throwed out and has to bond himself out. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support. And this is something that the defense Anna brings up that he may have it may state that, or he may say that he was at that residence and he saw that knife at that residence. But other, we just don't know what the defense will throw out there, and any of this. I think it would be extremely risky um, that. Um, if he says it's got stolen from him. I don't think a jury would go with that. But now, if he says that he saw a certain type of knife at a yard sale or something, law enforcement's going to backtrack that story. So whatever he says he had contact with, um, and if that's brought in, I think it's going to be high risk for him to be able to say anything about that. And will they ever be able to explain that DNA? I just don't know. I think they're going to try to have that DNA profile suppressed, and and I think that's going to play a big role in how it goes into the trial stages. Let's see here. Could it be possible that latent print was caused by him cutting that corner of the leaf since it was probably more friction? Um, the shoe print, I think they said it. If you're talking about the shoe print, they used some type um, of test to determine that it was blood, and then they, I think, then they used another chemical and recovered that footprint. If that's one you're talking about. Lone pony. We throw synthetic blood on everything. That's the sweetest thing I've heard in a long time. Oh, me. Yeah, we got some bad weather coming here too, Gil. All right. Sandy says, Steve, you've gotten really good at this solo operation. I don't think so. Um, like I said, I miss so much, and I try not to. Um, she may be proud of me, but I'm far. I respect and very proud of her. She works so hard. Y'all just don't know how much work she does behind the scenes, guy. She works on everything all the time. Yes, and thank him for his service. Appreciate it. Yeah, narcotics. I never worked in narcotics. Senior Johnson, I got good at the Google machine. And Matt, yes, I agree with you. I think they have far more video evidence because they went out and did the canvas and was able to get so much. I think they have far more than we will. We'll become aware of it in the if it goes to trial. I have no doubt. Let's see here. Dog defender Steve. My husband's doing narcotics. It is horrible for family. Mm. I can't even keep up with live chat as an observer. No way to command the station as a creator. Um, I'm telling you, multitasking is not one of my. Oh, all righty, guys. I appreciate everybody being here. If you have any information on this case, absolutely make sure law enforcement has it. Thank y'all for being here. And if you have any questions or observations, share, like, sub, off, spread the information about our channel as much as you can, because as our footprint grows, we can have a bigger and greater impact on some of the cold cases that this year we're going to be going out and working. And I want to thank all the donations tonight and everybody that supports this channel in so many ways. We couldn't do it without y'all. And y'all stay safe out there. And I'll probably be on the road Saturday, going down to Florida for a day or two before the bad weather hits Georgia. Then I got to get back up here and make sure all the animals are taken care of. But y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.